Welcome back to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We've got a program today that if you think you're going to retire at some point in your life, you probably want to be listening to, because it's a conversation about Social Security. We're pleased to be joined by one of our fellow certified financial fiduciaries at Nelson Financial Planning. Rob Field also happens to be an expert in Social Security. He's a National Social Security advisor. Talked a little bit about sort of setting the table in the last segment, the history, some of the current financial conditions. Let's talk now about some of the sort of regular changes that we see in Social Security. And we also want to then talk about sort of what's the difference between a pension versus Social Security. So one of the changes that happens every year, of course, of Social Security is the cost of living adjustment.
Correct. There have been a couple of years in which it did not increase.
2016 being the last one.
Correct.
Yeah.
But for 2021, it did increase 1.3%. You know, its goal is to try to keep up with inflation. So every year that will be addressed. This year they moved it up 1.3. I read a couple articles in the last week. They're estimating it could go up over 5%.
Wow.
For going into 2022. Typically in October of the prior year, they will announce what it's going to be.
Right.
I saw a number of 5.3 that a lot of groups back up. So
wow.
I think
wow.
we'll see that. But yeah, every year they'll adjust it. Again, once a senior starts collecting Social Security, it kind of locks in a number.
Right.
So in order to keep that number helping them out through retirement, as the CPI goes up, then Social Security will try to track that and say we need to increase the amount that we're paying to our seniors.
Well, and certainly I know they wait for the third quarter inflation data to come out before they make that decision. So we won't have a kind of a final number on that. But if that is close to that number at 5.3, when was the last time it came anywhere near close to that? I mean, that's a pretty...
Back in the 80s when interest rates were so high,
right.
We saw it. But
we don't want that. We don't want to go back to that era.
Right. That's a big jump, because you jump up 5.3 next year, and then everybody's going to demand some type of cost of living the following year.
Right.
So now you're putting yourself on a tough level. But most people agree that probably the amount has not adjusted high enough to keep up with inflation in the last few years. So this jump is sort of designed to maybe do a little
catch up. Yeah, because 1.3 as the COLA adjustment for this year, that's pretty low.
Right. That's not really accurate or in comparison to what inflation's really doing. Right. But again, Social Security doesn't want to make they commit themselves, because they can never really go down. They can't say, you know what, we overestimated, so let's adjust it.
Right, that is very true. Once you get your benefit, it will not go down. Now, some people see their benefit go down, but that's based upon something totally different, in that if they had higher level of income, they may be paying more for Medicare.
True.
And then that would reduce their Social Security benefit. But to your point, once you get your Social Security benefit, it's not going to go down. It's only going to go up based upon the COLA, unless you get hit with this Medicare additional cost, which applies if you're above a certain income limit. That can come into play.
Sure. I mean, Medicare is designed to help supplement your medical insurance. Once you've retired, you don't have insurance through your company. And so Social Security, one of their divisions is the Medicare portion, where you have the Part A, the Part B, and the Part D if you choose to combine it all. And so they are paying, part of your Part A, let you pay part of the Part B, but the amount that you make and things like that could have an effect and actually increase the portion that would come out of your pocket.
Right, and that income threshold that triggers additional costs of your Medicare Part B, it hasn't changed. It's not indexed to inflation. I think for a single person, it starts to kick in about $85,000. For a married couple, it's about $170,000. So those thresholds, more and more people see themselves getting tripped up along the way. So certainly something to kind of be aware of. But it's not a reduction in your Social Security. It's just the reality is they're asking you to pay more on your Medicare. So we talked about the cost of living adjustment. Obviously, that's one of the changes that happens every single year. You mentioned in the last segment the wage base, if you will, or the tax base that Social Security taxes apply. Last year was $137,700. 2021, it's up to $142,800. And I guess there's another thing that changes every year, and that has to deal with coverage credits. So what's that part about?
Correct. The way Social Security determines how you qualify is you have to have what they call 40 credits. And each credit is an amount of money that you make. You can only get 4 credits per year, although you could load up all your credits in the first quarter. But basically, every credit used to be if you earned $1,140, there's 1 credit. They've moved that number up to $1,470. So you got to make a little bit more to earn a credit. You need 40 credits, which would equate to about 10 years of work. Doesn't have to be consecutive, so you could work a few years, not work. As long as you get to that 40 credit level, and now you have to make a little bit more to hit a credit, you'd qualify for Social Security. Now that would be a lower number compared to somebody that
work more, have more wage in order to have that credit
to qualify for the initial Social Security.
Kind of one of those things where they're making that adjustment to, again, have Social Security available for those that are working regularly versus kind of more on a sporadic basis.
Correct. Social Security, they want it to be a supplement. They hope that that's something that you're pairing up with your pension plan or your 401k or other investments you might have. But they do see the numbers that says, well, if 1 out of 4 Americans are using Social Security for 90% of their income, we got to work with that.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, I think people often think of Social Security as like a pension, but it's really not. I mean, there are some key differences between a pension versus Social Security. So what are some of those kind of traits of a pension and traits of Social Security?
Sure. So your pension plan is provided by your employer, and it's trying to give you a retirement plan based on how long you worked there, what your salary was, what your age is. And it can sometimes be a pretty good number. It can be strong. And so you have that. You can, when you retire from that company, you can start collecting it. You might retire in your 50s. It's available to you at that age. And it does offer you some income. And if you chose to have a payout that continued past your death to your wife, you could pick that number. So you have some flexibility there. Where now Social Security is obviously provided by the government. We pay in as we go, so you're funding it yourself.
Right.
Social Security has some rules. It says the earliest you can retire is age 62. And again, I think they'll probably bump that up. That's just my own personal opinion to try to save out. But
sure.
And then once you lock it in, that's your number. But Social Security also can provide spousal benefits. So the amount that you're getting from Social Security will affect that.
So definitely some key differences between, kind of your pension versus your Social Security. Pension typically employer provided. Social Security, well, some of it's employer provided, but you're certainly paying into that along the way. It's a social program meant to enhance those other types of income that you would expect in retirement. The expression of a three-legged stool, I guess, was one of the expressions that was used back when Social Security first started to talk about Social Security being one leg, pension the other, investments the other. Unfortunately, in today's world, there's less pensions out there, so people are having to beef up the investment side of that of that stool along the way. There's also some other things that I guess are certainly unique. Typically, Social Security, there's no option for a lump sum. Sometimes pensions will give you an option for a lump sum that you can then roll over. And then, there's certainly a difference in terms of survivor benefits. Social Security automatically provides those. Typically, with a pension, you'd have to sort of elect that option. And then there's also a difference in the taxation as well of a pension versus Social Security.
Sure. Pension plan is a retirement plan, and so it's considered to have been deferred. So when you pull it out, it's 100% taxable. Everything you haven't paid taxes as you go along. Social Security, if all you collected was Social Security, you might not have to pay any taxes. And if you did have to pay a little bit of tax, no more than maybe 50% of just the Social Security.
Right, and the maximum amount would be 85. So you may find that your Social Security is either not taxable or only 85% of it is, versus a pension, which is no matter what, always going to be considered an ordinary income that you've got to report and pay taxes.
Correct.
So some interesting stuff. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to continue the conversation with Rob Field, our resident Social Security expert at Nelson Financial Planning, here on Dollars and Cents.